rise of the gig economy has led to an increase in side hustles, with many South Africans turning to non-traditional income sources to supplement their earnings. However, this shift also brings complexity in navigating tax compliance. As a side hustler in South Africa, it's essential to understand your tax obligations and to also ensure you're meeting your tax responsibilities. Well, joining me to unpack more onto this conversation is Sarika Rautenbach, tax partner at KPMG and Olebogeng Ramatlhodi, head of Indirect Tax, Deloitte. Well, Olebogeng, just starting with you and also just to unpack more, what are the tax compliance considerations for side hustlers in South Africa, and also including your tax returns as well as your record keeping?
Thank you, Prudence, and good afternoon to your viewers. So, this topic is a very interesting one. As you know, the gist of the economy, as economists would say, lies in us making sure that small businesses are encouraged to flourish in the economy. So from a tax compliance perspective, and this is not a small topic because tax in itself can get you into a lot of trouble as an entrepreneur. So there's a couple of things to consider from a tax compliance perspective. If you are hustling as an individual, like me and you would pay your personal income taxes. If the side hustle is in addition to your daily job, the revenue that you generate out of the side hustle will then be a top up to your personal income taxes, which would mean, as you potentially know, that you potentially fall into a tax bracket, and that would then mean that you pay a bit more tax than you otherwise would. That's from a personal perspective. If you move into the corporate space, if you employ people, you are responsible for withholding personal pay as you earn for the Revenue Authority, and the obligation where that is concerned is that on a monthly basis, at the end of the month, you need to file your personal pay-as-you-earn return with the South African Revenue Authority, and within 7 days of that, you also need to be paying over the personal pay-as-you-earn that you would have withheld for that particular month. That's on the pay-as-you-earn perspective. From a corporate income tax perspective, as a corporate, you've got the responsibility to file annually with the Revenue Authority, and the tax where that is concerned is 27%. From a VAT perspective, just maybe to conclude on the topic, you've got the responsibility to file biannually if you meet the 1 million rand threshold, but there is an option for corporates to file if they meet the minimum threshold, which is 50,000 South African rands.
So coming to you, Sarika, so how do side hustlers differentiate between employment income, freelance income, as well as business income for tax purposes, and what are the implications for those tax obligations?
Essentially, your employment income would be any income that you receive in respect of employment that you undertake under a contract of employment. So that would be your normal salary income and associated benefits. When it comes to freelance income, there are certain considerations to be given there, and it really does depend on the manner in which you are contracted to provide those services, whether you are regarded as an employee for tax purposes or not. What is the difference between being an employee or a freelancer or earning other income? That is essentially the manner in which the tax flows through to SARS and the manner in which the tax is collected. At any point in time when you are receiving income as an employee, your employer is required to withhold your income taxes before making payment to you, which essentially means that when that person files their income tax return at the end of the year, they shouldn't necessarily have much to pay in. On the other hand, any income that is not subject to employees' tax needs to be declared through the provisional tax system. That means that any business income or freelance income that a person receives in addition to their salary would need to be declared in their provisional returns twice a year, and payment of that taxes need to be made at the same time as filing of those provisional tax returns. So I think just to answer your question, the main distinction is at what point in time do you pay the taxes and how does that tax make its way to SARS? Is it through a withholding from your employer or an active filing of a return and making of a payment through the provisional tax system?
So what are the challenges if you won't, rather as a side hustler, won't be able to pay your tax obligations?
The biggest challenge that your side hustlers have with regards to non-compliance with the filing requirement is that they would then be penalized. And the penalties range from 10% to 200% for either late payment or non-filing of your pay-as-you-earn return, as an example. And you can imagine, it would have a debilitating impact on your cash flow, your revenue, etc., as a small medium enterprise. So it is really in a side hustler's interest to make sure that they tick all those boxes, either through engaging with a consultant in the industry. The smaller the better, because as you can imagine, there is a cost to any type of compliance assistance. Long and short of it is, it is in your best interest to make sure that you file on time based on the obligations that you have, where the particular taxes that are applicable to you are concerned.
Sarika, what strategies can side hustlers use to minimize their tax liability while ensuring compliance with tax laws and regulations?
I think the most important thing to understand is what are you liable for, so that you are able to plan around it. When considering the amount that becomes ultimately taxable, in speaking generally, a person would be able to deduct any expenses that they incur in the production of that income. And so it's to really understand what are those items that can be deducted against earnings from the business. To be able to properly estimate the taxes that you need to pay. And I think to that point, understanding that there is a liability and making sure that you plan for that liability accordingly, so that you're not caught off guard when all of a sudden you need to fork out the cash to pay the tax liability, is absolutely key. Information is your best friend here, and planning will really put you in a position where the taxes don't catch you off guard or place you in a precarious position.
And also, just to go further with that information, what can side hustlers do to stay up to date with those changes, especially when coming to regulation laws?
The biggest advantage that we have with South Africa is that many years back, the South African Revenue Service established an outreach program in terms of which small and medium enterprises would then be invited for education sessions, so as to make sure that they brought up to speed in terms of what the requirements are. Over and above that, the Small Enterprise Development Agency of government also provides mentorship, business advice in terms of what those requirements are, and they put hubs throughout South Africa that hustlers can visit, and so as to make sure that they are au fait with what the requirements are.
And also, what are the historical consequences, or rather comparisons, compared to the side hustlers in South Africa? What impact does it have when coming for them to stay up to date in those terms?
If you compare the period before the establishment of the agency and the support that you get from a SARS perspective, we found that historically a lot of failures from a small and medium enterprise business was one of the biggest contributing factors, was because they fast forward into the operations of the business, found themselves with a tax bill they couldn't afford, which meant that they had to close shop. So it is an important factor for them to consider, so as to make sure that they worry about running a business and not have to worry about the small hustles taxes.
And Sarika, just before I let you go, just give advice to side hustlers in South Africa, most especially who want to start small, medium enterprises, as well as what key resolutions on them to be standing rather up to date into those tax obligations.
The main thing is, and the most important thing is, to do your research beforehand, know what it is that you're in for, so that you are able to plan accordingly. And in terms of staying up to date, I think there's quite a lot of information available from SARS directly. The resources available on the SARS website, and even the AI bots that they have on the SARS website at the moment are really great at answering the questions that you might have around tax obligations in various scenarios. So really using those resources that are put forward and being made available to the public will assist a person in making sure that they know what their tax obligations are, as well as enabling them to plan for that liability accordingly.
Well, thank you for joining us for today. And that was Sarika Rautenbach, tax partner at KPMG, and also Olebogeng Ramatlhodi, head of Indirect Tax, Deloitte. And as we conclude today's episode, remember that Africa's entrepreneurial spirit is unstoppable. Turn your passions into profits and join the movement. Share your hustle story with us on social media using hashtag Africa's Side Hustle. And don't forget to subscribe for more entrepreneurial stories, business news and insights on CNBCAfrica.com. Till next week.